My boyfriend's sister broke into my house and kidnapped my sister, so I ended her perfect life. 4 years later, she wants me to convince her family to forgive her. My boyfriend made me feel like a princess until I met his sister. I remember being 16 and really nervous to meet her. I had stalked her Instagram for weeks in the time leading up to the family dinner. I could literally recite every caption she'd ever used back to 2019, as well as every story highlight she had up, because she was everything I wasn't. Blonde, tall, and skinny fat. Like, ugh, the dream body. And it's not like I'm ugly, or at least I hope not. I'm just short, brunette, and a size US 2 instead of 0. Obviously, I never mentioned my fears to my boyfriend, because the last thing I wanted was for him to think I was obsessed with his sister or something, even though I was. Fast forward to the big day. I wore a floral maxi dress that hugged my waist and straightened my hair to make it less frizzy. At this point, I really thought my boyfriend would be my husband one day, so I didn't want to take any chances with his parents not liking me. Meanwhile, Jake just wore a gray Nike matching outfit. Go figure. When we walked in, I was hit with a wave of shock. His parents squeezed me super tight like I was already one of them. And when I saw his sister Vanessa, who was 2 years older than me, my jaw dropped. All my hopes of her being a catfish had vanished. She literally looked the exact same as she did on her Instagram. I was honestly about to start ignoring her just so I wouldn't have to feel insecure, but that's when she lunged at me for a hug too. OMG, Jake has told me so much about you. Her smile seemed genuine, loving, so I smiled and hugged her back. From there, things were pretty good, until we sat down for dinner. For context, I was extremely hungry because I literally hadn't eaten since breakfast. So when I finished eating before everyone else, I was too scared to ask for seconds. Luckily, Jake's mom literally offered it to me. But when I glanced over at Vanessa, she violently began to look at me, look down at my plate, then look up at me again like 100 times. I don't think you really need to eat all that. I dropped my fork. For some reason, I felt embarrassed, like it was my fault for literally just being a normal girl with an appetite. My boyfriend looked livid, but before he could open his mouth to speak, I pinched him, because there was no way I'd let my first impression of his family be me starting a fight. So I politely nodded and said, "You're right," before convincing his mom not to load me up. Turns out that one anecdote was Vanessa's green flag to outrageously body shame me for the rest of time, because as I drove home, my phone started buzzing with texts on Instagram. Vanessa was spamming me with lose weight Instagram reels, as well as healthy recipes from BuzzFeed. She hadn't even bothered to follow me back. I wanted nothing more than to screenshot her texts and let my boyfriend go off on her, but there was something I wanted even more than that, to be the girl who fights her own battles. So I simply just liked everything she sent and never replied. I figured that everyone has flaws, and if Vanessa was Jake's only flaw, then he was still the perfect man to me. So when his mom was having a birthday dinner and he invited me, I said yes. I got there super early because I wanted to scan the menu to already have my order chosen. But then out of nowhere, Vanessa showed up. When she saw me, she laughed. Ugh, I'm glad I'm not the only one who's freakishly early. I just have to come early to these things because I hate bumping into people when my implants are freshly adjusted. My mouth was literally hanging open, and I guess she knew I had no idea what she was talking about, because that's when she said, "Oh right, yeah, I'm usually pretty open about it. I just don't want my family to know. You can keep a secret, can't you?" I nodded politely. Suddenly, every ounce of insecurity was vacuumed out of my body, because not only does she have chest implants, but also a tummy tuck, liposuction, a nose deviation, and hair extensions, and I really was going to keep her secret. But at the dinner table, while I began to order, she laughed like a pig. "If you're gonna eat that much, why don't you just buy the whole damn restaurant?" She then proceeded to bang her fist on the table while crying, laughing. Meanwhile, me and Jake's family just sat there, completely straight-faced and very uncomfortable. "Hey Vanessa, if you're going to have that much plastic pumped into your body, why don't you just box yourself up and start going by Barbie?" She immediately went silent. Even the waiter chuckled. "Oh, didn't you guys know?" I was now facing her parents. "Vanessa hasn't even so much as stepped foot into college. All your money has gone into her nose, lips, and stomach." Her parents started screaming at her and calling her greedy. Her dad even used the W word. My boyfriend just held my hand, making sure I was okay. Needless to say, she stormed out and I naively thought I'd never have to see her again. But the next day, I woke up to a call. It wasn't Vanessa, it was my mom. Someone had broken into our house, and my younger sister was nowhere to be found. Turns out Vanessa is not only a plastic pumped beach, she's effing psycho. I need help. I found my kidnapped sister. I was trying to keep my voice steady as I gave the operator the address, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the phone, but Vanessa lunged at me, her eyes wild with fury, trying to grab my phone. "Give me that!" she snarled, her perfectly manicured nails scratching my arm, leaving angry red welts in their wake. Jake pulled her back, his arms wrapping around her waist, struggling to restrain her without actually hurting her, his face a mask of disbelief and horror. "Vanessa, stop! This has gone way too far." His voice cracked with emotion. "The police are on their way," I told her, backing away, the hardwood floor cold beneath my bare feet. "It's over." Something changed in Vanessa's eyes then, a cold calculation replacing the hot anger, like a switch had been flipped. She suddenly stopped struggling against Jake and laughed, the sound sending chills down my spine. "Fine, call the cops, but think about what happens next." Her voice dropped to a menacing whisper, her breath hot against my face. "Your sister will tell them I was nice to her, that we were having fun. It'll be your word against mine. And guess what? I'm really good at crying on command." My stomach twisted into knots, the bitter taste of fear rising in my throat. She wasn't wrong. Lily was only 8. She probably had no idea she'd been kidnapped, too young to understand the manipulation. And Vanessa was exactly the type who could turn on the waterworks and play victim, her pretty face the perfect mask for her twisted mind. "And Jake," she continued, turning to her brother with a sickeningly sweet smile, her voice dripping with honey, "are you really going to testify testify against your own sister? Mom and Dad will never forgive you. I could see the conflict on Jake's face, the war between loyalty to family and doing what's right. He loved me, but this was his family, his blood. I couldn't ask him to choose, the weight of that decision too heavy to place on his shoulders. Before either of us could respond, the front door opened with a creak, and Lily poked her head out, her brown hair tangled from sleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit with its worn ears and missing eye. I heard yelling, she said, her small voice trembling, eyes widening when she saw me. Sis, you came too? Vanessa said we were having a special girls' night, but then she got really mad when I wanted to call Mommy. My heart leapt with hope. Lily wasn't completely fooled. She knew something was wrong. Vanessa's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. See? Everything's fine. Now hang up that phone before you ruin everyone's lives. Her voice had an edge like a knife. I looked at Lily's frightened face, then at Jake's tortured expression, and made a split-second decision. Officer, please hurry. The situation is escalating. I whispered into the phone before Vanessa could stop me. I hung up, feeling Vanessa's glare burning into me. You'll regret that, she hissed, her perfect facade cracking to reveal the monster beneath. The next hour was excruciating, the tension in the room thick enough to choke on. Vanessa sent Lily to watch TV in another room while the three of us sat at the kitchen table, the ticking of the wall clock counting down the seconds. Jake looked like he was going to be sick, his face pale, hands clenched into fists on his lap. Here's how this is going to work, Vanessa said, her voice eerily calm, like we were discussing dinner plans instead of a kidnapping. You're going to post a public apology on Instagram. You'll say you made up everything about my surgeries because you were jealous. You'll say how sorry you are for lying, and how you're working on your issues. She examined her manicure as she spoke, as if bored by the whole situation. That's insane, I said, my voice shaking with anger. You kidnapped my sister. Borrowed, Vanessa corrected with a smirk that made my blood boil. And I'll take her home tomorrow, safe and sound. Unless you'd prefer I call the police and tell them you've been harassing me. I have plenty of fake messages I could show them. She pulled out her phone, showing me screenshots of conversations that never happened, my supposed threats to her looking convincingly real. Jake finally spoke up, his voice hoarse with emotion. Vanessa, this isn't you. What happened to my sister? The sister he'd grown up with, protected, loved. She rolled her eyes, the gesture so dismissive it made my heart ache for him. Oh, please. I'm the same as I've always been. You just never noticed because you were too busy being Mom and Dad's perfect child. Her voice dripped with years of resentment. I could see this was about way more than me. This was years of jealousy and bitterness bubbling to the surface, poisoning everything it touched. Fine, I said, my mind racing, trying to buy time until the police arrived. I'll post the apology, but I want to take Lily home tonight. Vanessa shook her head, blonde hair swinging. Tomorrow, after I see the post and make sure it's convincing enough. She smiled, revealing teeth that suddenly looked sharp in the kitchen's harsh light. I felt trapped, cornered like an animal, but I had to play along. For now. Can I at least talk to her? Make sure she's okay? My voice cracked with worry. Vanessa shrugged, the movement casual as if we were discussing something trivial. Sure, just don't say anything stupid. The threat hung in the air between us. I found Lily in the bedroom, sitting cross-legged on the bed, watching cartoons on a tablet, the colorful images reflected in her wide eyes. When she saw me, she jumped up for a hug, her small arms wrapping around my neck. I was scared. Vanessa said we were playing a game, but then she got really mad when I asked to call Mommy. She said you'd be mad at me if I didn't come with her. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She made me climb out the window and I got a scrape. She showed me her elbow, the small cut surrounded by a bruise. My blood boiled at the thought of Vanessa coaxing my little sister out a window in the middle of the night, manipulating her with lies. But I kept my voice steady, not wanting to frighten her more. You didn't do anything wrong, Lil. I'm not mad at you at all. I stroked her hair, feeling her relax against me. What else happened? She made me promise not to tell about the window part. She said it was our secret adventure. Lily's voice trembled. But then she got really scary when someone called her. She put me in the closet and said I had to be quiet or else bad people would find us. I bit my tongue to keep from screaming in rage. You're safe now. I'm here, and we're going home soon. I kissed her forehead, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. I have to go do something, but I'll be right back, okay? Lily nodded, already distracted by the cartoon again, though I noticed how she kept glancing nervously at the door. I went back to the kitchen, where Jake and Vanessa were having a heated whispered argument, their faces inches apart. Can't believe you'd stoop this low, Jake was saying, his voice thick with disappointment. Oh, grow up, Vanessa snapped, tossing her hair over her shoulder. She had it coming. I cleared my throat, both of them turning to look at me. Lily's fine. I'm ready to make the post. My voice was flat, emotionless. Vanessa's smile returned, triumph gleaming in her eyes. Excellent. Let me see it before you post. I took out my phone and started typing, my fingers shaking with rage. I crafted the most convincing apology I could, saying I'd made up lies about Vanessa because I was insecure, that I was working on my issues, and that I was deeply sorry for hurting her family. Each word felt like swallowing glass. Vanessa read it over my shoulder, occasionally suggesting edits to make me sound even more pathetic, her breath hot on my neck. When she was satisfied, she nodded. Post it, and make sure it stays up. I hit share, feeling sick to my stomach, the betrayal of my own dignity a bitter med to swallow. Within minutes, comments started rolling in, people from school expressing surprise, offering support, some questioning what had happened. It was humiliating, each notification a fresh wound. There, I said, putting my phone down with more force than necessary. Happy now? Getting there, Vanessa said, examining her nails again. Now, Jake, take your little girlfriend home. I'll bring the kid back tomorrow after I've had time to make sure this all blows over properly. Jake started to protest, but I squeezed his hand under the table. It's okay, let's go. My eyes tried to communicate what I couldn't say aloud, that I had a plan. As we walked to the door, I called out, Bye, Lily. See you tomorrow. trying to keep my voice light. Bye, she called back, her voice small and uncertain. Once we were in Jake's car, I finally let the tears come, hot and angry down my cheeks. I can't believe this is happening. Jake looked devastated, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. I'm so sorry. I had no idea she could do something like this. His voice broke on the last word. We need a plan, I said, wiping my eyes with the back of my hand. I'm not leaving my sister with her overnight. Jake nodded, determination replacing the shock in his eyes. I know, but if we call the police now, they might not believe us. I finished his thought, and Lily would be confused and scared. We sat in silence for a moment, the only sound our ragged breathing. Then I had an idea, hope flickering to life. Wait, I took a photo through the window before I called 911. It shows Lily in the house, and I have the texts from those unknown numbers that I'm pretty sure were from Vanessa. Jake's eyes widened, a matching spark of hope igniting. And I recorded part of our conversation with Vanessa on my phone. I started recording when she was talking about blackmailing you. I could have kissed him right then, relief washing over me in waves. That's evidence, real evidence. The weight on my chest lightening slightly. But is it enough? Jake wondered, running a hand through his hair. She could still spin it, make up some story about babysitting. I thought for a moment, chewing on my lower lip. We need more. We need her to actually confess, to say the words where there's no ambiguity. How do we do that? Jake asked, starting the car, the engine rumbling to life. I looked at the humiliating apology I'd posted, the comments still pouring in like salt in an open wound. We use this. She thinks she's won. People like Vanessa get sloppy when they think they've won. The plan formed in my mind, pieces falling into place. We drove back to Jake's house to regroup, the familiar two-story suburban home now feeling like foreign territory. His parents were there, looking worried, his mom's mascara smudged from crying. Jake, where have you been? His mom asked, rushing to hug him. We've been calling and texting for hours, her voice thick with concern. Sorry, Jake said, hugging her back. My phone died. We've been dealing with some stuff. His voice carefully neutral. His dad frowned, lines deepening around his mouth. Is this about Vanessa? She texted saying she's staying with a friend for a few days until things cool down. I felt Jake tense beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing. Yeah, about that. We ended up telling them a partial truth, that Vanessa was upset about what happened at dinner and was taking some time away. We didn't mention Lily. I wasn't ready to involve more people until we had a solid plan, the risk too great. In Jake's room, we laid out what we knew, the facts stark and terrifying when listed out. Vanessa had Lily at her aunt's house, Aunt Mia, who was conveniently out of town for the weekend. She expected me to keep quiet about the kidnapping in exchange for Lily's safe return tomorrow. She thought her blackmail had worked, that she'd won this twisted game. We need to get her to admit what she did, I said, pacing the length of Jake's room, the carpet soft under my bare feet. On record. Jake nodded, sitting on the edge of his bed, determination hardening his features. And we need to get Lily out of there tonight. We came up with a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best we could do with the time and resources we had. First, I posted another Instagram story, a tearful selfie with the caption, "Sometimes the hardest thing is admitting when you're wrong. Grateful for second chances." I knew Vanessa would eat it up, her ego unable to resist the validation. Then Jake called her, his phone on speaker between us, the dial tone seeming to stretch for eternity. "Hey," he said when she answered, his voice carefully casual. "Just checking in." "Everything's fine," Vanessa said, sounding smug, the satisfaction dripping from every syllable. "Your girlfriend's post is getting lots of sympathy. People are so gullible." Her laugh made my skin crawl. "Yeah, about that." Jake hesitated, following our script. "I think I need to break up with her." My heart skipped even though we'd planned this, the words still stinging despite knowing they weren't real. "Really?" Vanessa sounded delighted, practically purring with pleasure. "Yeah, after what she did to our family, and now finding out she lied about everything, I can't be with someone like that." Jake's acting was convincing, his voice heavy with fake disappointment. "Wow, Jake, I'm proud of you. It's about time you saw her for who she really is." Vanessa's voice softened, sisterly affection replacing the gloating. Jake took a deep breath, the sound amplified by the phone's speaker. "The thing is, I'm still confused about some stuff. Like, why did you have her sister at Aunt Mia's house?" He jumped straight to the point, no more dancing around. There was a pause, the silence stretching thin. "I told you, the kid thinks it's a fun sleepover." Vanessa's voice had an edge now, caution creeping in. "Yeah, but why take her in the first place? Through a window in the middle of the night?" Jake pushed, his knuckles white as he gripped the phone. Another pause, longer this time. "It got the results I wanted, didn't it? Your precious girlfriend is finally showing some humility." The smugness was back, unable to resist bragging about her success. "By kidnapping a child? That's pretty extreme, Ness." Jake's voice hardened, using her childhood nickname to disarm her. "It wasn't kidnapping," Vanessa snapped, defensive now. "It was teaching her a lesson. Besides, the kid's fine. I didn't hurt her." Her voice rising slightly, except for the scrape on her arm. Jake pushed, following our plan perfectly. "That was nothing." She slipped, climbing out the window. "Not my fault she's clumsy." Vanessa's voice pitched higher, irritation bleeding through. Jake caught my eye, a silent confirmation that we were getting what we needed. "So you broke into their house and took her sister just to get back at her for embarrassing you at dinner?" His voice calm, matter of fact, drawing her out. "She deserved it." Vanessa's voice rose to almost a shout, control slipping away. "She humiliated me in front of everyone. Do you have any idea what it's like to have dad look at me that way? To have mom crying about all the money they spent? Your girlfriend ruined everything." Her words tumbling out in a rush of anger. "By telling the truth?" Jake's question was simple but devastating. That wasn't her truth to tell. Vanessa was practically shouting now, composure completely gone. "So yes, I took her stupid sister, and I'd do it again. She needed to learn that no one messes with me." The confession hung in the air between us, damning and complete. Jake's hand was shaking, but his voice remained steady. "I recorded this whole conversation, Vanessa. It's over." There was a moment of stunned silence, then Vanessa laughed, the sound brittle and forced. You're bluffing. Check your texts. I sent her the audio clip Jake had just recorded, our hearts pounding in unison as we waited. We heard her phone ding, followed by the sound of our conversation playing back, her own voice condemning her. You little… Vanessa's voice was venomous, dripping with hate. You think this changes anything? By the time you get here with the cops, we'll be long gone. Good luck finding us. The line went dead, leaving us staring at each other in horror. She's going to run, I said, panic rising in my chest, threatening to choke me. Jake was already grabbing his keys, determination replacing fear. Not if we get there first. We raced to his car, calling 911 on the way. This time, I didn't hang up. I explained everything. The kidnapping, the blackmail, the confession we just recorded, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. The operator assured us officers were being dispatched to the address, her calm voice a lifeline in the storm. Please hurry, I begged, my voice cracking. She's threatening to take my sister somewhere else. The 15-minute drive to Aunt Mia's house felt like hours, each second stretching into eternity. When we finally pulled onto the street, my heart sank to my stomach. Vanessa's car was still in the driveway, but all the lights in the house were off, the windows dark and empty. We're too late, I whispered, despair threatening to overwhelm me. But as we got closer, I noticed something. The front door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness between door and frame. Jake parked and we approached cautiously, the gravel crunching under our feet sounding impossibly loud in the quiet neighborhood. Lily? I called, my voice shaking, barely above a whisper. Are you here? A small sound came from somewhere in the back of the house, like a muffled cry. Faint, but unmistakable. We followed it to a closet in the hallway, the door closed but not latched. When Jake pulled the door open, Lily tumbled out, her hands tied with a silky scarf and a piece of tape across her mouth, her eyes wide with fear and relief. I dropped to my knees, quickly removing the tape as gently as possible and untying her hands, the scarf falling to the floor. Lily, are you okay? Did she hurt you? My hands frantically checking her for injuries, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Lily threw her arms around me, sobbing against my shoulder, her whole body trembling. I was so scared. She got really mad after the phone call and said we had to leave, but I didn't want to go. I started crying and she got even madder and put me in here. Her words muffled against my shirt, wet with tears. Where is she now? Jake asked gently, kneeling beside us, his hand on Lily's back. Lily pointed toward the back door, hiccuping through her tears. She went to get her car from the garage. She said she was coming right back for me, but I was being too noisy, so she had to make me quiet first. The casual cruelty of it made me want to scream. Jake and I exchanged looks of horror. We need to get out of here, I said, picking up Lily, her arms wrapping around my neck, legs around my waist like when she was smaller. But as we turned toward the front door, headlights swept across the windows, the beams cutting through the darkness. A car was pulling into the driveway, the engine's rumble growing louder. She's back, Jake whispered, tension radiating from him. We ducked into the living room, trying to stay out of sight, Lily's face buried against my neck, her breathing quick and frightened. I could hear car doors slamming, then multiple sets of footsteps on the porch, the sound of radios crackling. Police! Anyone inside? A deep voice called out, the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Relief flooded through me, my knees nearly buckling. Jake called out, in here! We have the missing girl, his voice cracking with emotion. Everything happened quickly after that, a blur of activity and noise. Officers secured the house while paramedics checked Lily for injuries, their gentle hands and kind voices calming her. She was scared but otherwise unharmed, just a few bruises and the scrape on her elbow. I held her hand the whole time, promising I wouldn't leave her again, each squeeze of her small fingers a reminder of how close we'd come to losing her. Detective Chen, a woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, took our statements and the evidence we'd gathered, the recorded confession, the threatening texts, the photo of Lily in the house. She listened without interruption, taking detailed notes, the scratch of her pen against paper oddly comforting in the chaos. This is solid evidence, she assured us, her confidence steadying my frayed nerves. We'll find her. But as the night wore on, there was no sign of Vanessa. She seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the chaos she'd created. The police put out an APB on her car and assured us they were doing everything possible to locate her, but the not knowing gnawed at me, a constant fear that she might return. Jake's parents arrived, looking shell-shocked, his mom's eyes red and swollen from crying. When they heard the full story, his mom broke down again, sobbing into her hands. I had no idea, she kept saying, her voice hollow with disbelief. How could she do something like this? The question none of us could answer. We all went back to my house where Mom was waiting with hot chocolate and blankets, her face lined with worry and relief. Lily fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from her ordeal, one hand still clutching her stuffed rabbit. I couldn't stop checking on her every few minutes just to make sure she was really there, really safe, her chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. Detective Chen called with an update around midnight, her voice tired but professional. They'd found Vanessa's car abandoned at a bus station, but no sign of her. They were checking security footage and passenger manifests, casting a wide net. We'll find her, the detective promised, conviction in her voice. In the meantime, we'll have a patrol car outside your house tonight. I thanked her and hung up, feeling numb, the adrenaline crash leaving me empty and exhausted. Jake put his arm around me, his warmth the only thing keeping me grounded. I'm so sorry, he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. This is all my fault. I shook my head, leaning into him. No, it's not. You couldn't have known what she would do. The truth was, none of us could have predicted this level of obsession and revenge. The next morning, I woke up on the couch next to Lily, her small body curled against mine, Jake asleep in the armchair nearby, his face peaceful for the first time in what felt like forever. For a moment, everything felt normal, until I remembered, reality crashing back like a wave. I checked my phone and found dozens of notifications. Someone had leaked the whole story online, about Vanessa kidnapping Lily, about the blackmail, everything. People were sharing it everywhere, expressing shock and support, the story spreading like wildfire. And then I saw it, a direct message from an account I didn't recognize, the words making my blood run cold. "This isn't over. You think you've won? I'm just getting started. Watch your back." I showed it to Jake when he woke up, his face darkening with anger and fear. "We need to tell Detective Chen," he said, already reaching for his phone. Before I could respond, my phone rang, the screen showing an unknown number. I answered cautiously, bracing myself for Vanessa's voice. "Is this the girl who posted that fake apology?" The voice was unfamiliar, a woman, older than us, with a slight accent I couldn't place. "Who is this?" My guard immediately up, suspicion coloring every word. "My name is Rachel. I saw your story online and I thought you should know you're not alone. I dated Vanessa's ex-boyfriend before her. She did the same thing to me, spread lies, threatened me, even broke into my car once." Her words tumbled out in a rush, as if she'd been holding them in for too long. My hand tightened around the phone, hope and dread mingling in my chest. "Do you know where she might have gone?" "No, but I know she has a fake ID. She used it to buy alcohol when we were in school. The name was Mia something, like her aunt. The coincidence too perfect to be chance." I thanked Rachel and immediately called Detective Chen with this new information, the pieces of the puzzle finally coming together. By afternoon, the police had a lead. Someone matching Vanessa's description, using the name Mia Bell, had checked into a motel about 2 hours away, paying cash but using the ID for the registration. "We're sending officers now," Detective Chen told us, her voice tight with anticipation. "Stay put and stay safe." Jake and I spent the day with Lily, trying to keep things normal despite the police car parked outside and the constant checking of phones. We watched movies, played board games, ordered pizza, the ordinary activities a thin veneer over the extraordinary circumstances, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really over, that Vanessa was too clever, too determined to be caught so easily. That evening, Detective Chen called again, her voice triumphant. "We found her," she said, the words I'd been desperate to hear. "Vanessa Bell is in custody." The relief was overwhelming, tears springing to my eyes unbidden. I started crying, and Jake hugged me tight, his own eyes wet with emotion. "There's something else," the detective continued, her tone shifting to something more serious. "We found evidence in her motel room, detailed plans about what she was going to do next, notes about your routines, your family, your friends. This wasn't just about revenge for one dinner, this was obsessive." A chill ran down my spine despite the warmth of Jake's arms around me. "What happens now?" My voice small, afraid of the answer. "She'll be charged with kidnapping, breaking and entering, endangering a minor, and a host of other charges. With the evidence we have, including her own confession, she's looking at serious time." The detective's words were reassuring, but couldn't completely dispel the shadow Vanessa had cast over our lives. After hanging up, Jake and I sat in stunned silence, the weight of everything that had happened pressing down on us. "I never thought it would end like this," Jake said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "With my sister going to jail." The pain in his eyes was unbearable. I squeezed his hand, our fingers intertwining. "I'm sorry." The words inadequate, but all I had to offer. He shook his head, squeezing back. "Don't be. You didn't do this. She did." His loyalty to the truth, even when it hurt, one of the reasons I loved him. The next few days were a blur of police statements, counseling sessions for Lily, and dealing with the fallout online. I deleted the fake apology post and shared the truth instead, not to humiliate Vanessa, but to reclaim my story, to take back the narrative she had tried to control. Jake's parents were devastated, their world turned upside down. They came to apologize to my family, bringing flowers and tears and broken hearts. They'd had no idea about Vanessa's surgeries or her capacity for such cruelty. They'd been blind to who their daughter really was, seeing only what they wanted to see. A week after Vanessa's arrest, Jake and I sat on my porch swing, watching Lily play in the yard, her resilience amazing me as she chased butterflies, her laughter a healing sound. "My parents want to move," Jake said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between us. "After the trial, they can't face everyone here anymore." My heart sank, fear gripping me. "Will you go with them?" The thought of losing him after everything we'd been through almost too much to bear. He looked at me, his eyes serious but warm. "Number, I'm staying. If you still want me around." Relief washed over me, sweet and overwhelming. I leaned my head on his shoulder, breathing in his familiar scent. "I do, but it won't be easy. People will always associate you with what happened. The whispers already following us at school, the stares when we went out. I know, but running away won't change that. Besides," he smiled slightly, the expression reaching his eyes for the first time in days, "someone needs to make sure you don't straighten your hair too much. It looks better with some frizz." I laughed, remembering how nervous I'd been for that first family dinner, how I'd obsessed over my appearance. It seemed like a lifetime ago. That insecure girl who stalked Instagram profiles and worried about being a size 2 instead of 0. "Do you think she'll ever change?" I asked quietly, the question that had been haunting me. "Vanessa, I mean." Jake was silent for a long moment, his eyes following Lily as she twirled in the yard, sunlight catching in her hair. "I don't know. I hope so. But even if she does, some things can't be undone. The damage to his family, to Lily, to us, permanent marks left by Vanessa's actions." I nodded, watching my sister dance with the butterflies, her joy a defiant response to trauma. She was right. Some things couldn't be undone, but we could move forward. We could heal. My phone buzzed with a notification, another message from someone who'd seen my story online, sharing their own experience with bullying and body shaming. I'd received dozens like it in the past week, each one a reminder that our stories have power. "Maybe some good can come from this after all," I said, showing Jake the message, hope flickering to life inside beside me. He smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes, warming them from within. Maybe it can. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the yard, painting everything in gold and amber, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Not just that Vanessa would face justice, or that Lily would recover from her trauma, but that all of us, Jake, his parents, me, might eventually find a way to move past this darkness, to rebuild something stronger from the broken pieces. It wouldn't be easy. There would be a trial, media attention, whispers and stares. But sitting there with Jake, watching my sister play, I knew we'd get through it, together. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.